the history of the Cannonball to the U.S. Express, what the U.S. Express was.
Well, yeah.
It's like, he's like, well, why are you going?
Right. That's where we're starting from.
Yeah. And oh, by the way, P.S.
It's both comforting, and then when it says safe to leave exit vehicle, but it's still going on.
Safe to exit vehicle.
Gas.
Yeah, but like, what about the person who's already standing outside the car? Is it safe for them?
No, I've never.
Hi, honey. You stay back.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to a very different video on the channel today. Got up super early, and today is a road trip day. Obviously, we are in the E39 M5, and I have a bunch of stuff with. So the point of this video is not to sort of document the whole trip, like, oh, I'm gonna vlog my trip. Oh, I want to take you guys along. You know, I guess that part's kind of interesting, but I thought would be a little more interesting is to show you guys how I road trip. I think everyone's a little bit different on the stops they take, what they do to prep the car and all that kind of stuff. And because I'm sure everybody's going to be asking, Brandon, why are you driving 1,000 miles with a bunch of stuff in your car? I'm actually moving. I'm moving back to Ohio, better opportunity, a more serious and intense opportunity job-wise. So I'm really taking it to the next level for my job. And yeah, so that's really the reason. I am taking both cars back. I'm taking the M5. I'm taking the M5, of course, and also the M3 will be trailered. I'm going to be driving the M5 up right now. So I'm trying to do it in one day. The trip, according to Google Maps, says about 16 hours, and it's just over 1,000 miles. So yeah, so that's really it. I'm on 95 right now. I'm still in Florida. So I kind of want to just set the stage that way and kind of tell you why I'm driving. But I do kind of want to go through a bunch of the prep items and kind of explain to you guys sort of what I like to do to prep. You know, some people are obsessed with filling their tires and they have weird little quirks that they do. But for the M5, I have a couple of things that I did in prep for this car as well. And of course, you guys can see that we are cruising at a very comfortable 95 miles an hour on 95, which to me is perfect. We've got ways set up with a mount for the window that I literally just bought from Amazon. So I guess I will put that in the description. So far, it's pretty good. This little bendy arm is actually extremely tough. It's very stiff and tough, so it doesn't move up around. And of course, you can also hear the radar detector. This is pretty old, actually, in radar terms. This is an Escort 6500. I just have a little sticky mount that I literally just bought as well. And we just have those two basic items set up. And we've got our basic stuff here. We got some food, we got some snacks, we got book bag, which is easy to get to, and we got everyone. And what's actually really cool about this trip is I'm literally in one of the best vehicles that you can pick. It's an M5, which is kind of cool. And another thing I kind of have been thinking about, I actually left at 5 in the morning, but something that's kind of funny is I have been pretending I'm Alex Roy from time to time. He is the guy who set one of the Cannonball Run records, which was from New York to LA. And there we go. That's really annoying. But I can definitely see why he drove an E39 M5 across the United States. It's kind of cool. It's definitely one of the best cars. Pretty much any M5 of any modern era is probably an amazing choice. But obviously the little cruise thing is on. We're doing good. The temperature is now 63 outside. When I left, it was literally like 75, and then it went down to 73, and before you know it, it's 63, and I no longer have the air conditioning on. So we are already headed significantly cooler temperatures. So a lot of you guys know I actually swapped out my fog lights for LEDs. A company reached out and I swapped them out for some LED fog lights. They're a little wider and I really liked them, but the point of a fog light is not necessarily to have too bright of a light. As you'll see, some of the cars not many cars have this, but a handful of them do, especially aftermarket, is yellow fog lights. And I actually think yellow, for whatever reason, that temperature color is a little bit better to see through fog. You don't want too bright of a light, you don't want a light bar, you don't want anything like that. So before I left, I actually swapped out my fog lights to the regular halogen bulbs, which I'll probably be keeping in there for an extended period of time. And it's funny, having a 17-year-old car, it's a little older, but it really has a lot of the things that you need. You know, cruise control, good lighting, good visibility, obviously good power on the highway. So, so far, she's doing good. And welcome to a road trip. What would it be without passing everyone in the middle lane? And this is not really by choice. This is literally just the way that things have gone. And then now we're, of course, going to make our way, use our blinker, to the right-hand lane. It's literally just asinine that all these people sit in the passing lane. And we're going 12 miles an hour. Of course, outside Jacksonville, I believe we're maybe like 10 or 12 miles outside Jacksonville, which is, I don't know, I guess I'm a little surprised that traffic is so slow, but slowing down the average a little bit, but we're still making pretty good time. Georgia, here we are. All right, so we're about to get off. I normally don't let the gas get this low. We've actually averaged 19.6 on the entire trip. We have 23 miles left on this tank. Normally I fill up closer to 50 miles, but I skipped ahead a few exits and I was waiting for one that had gas and also food. I was around enough stuff that I was confident that there's gonna be a couple more exits, but I normally don't like to let it go that low on long trips, but especially through the mountains. But we're gonna get off here. And the trick to save time is to find the exits that have food and gas, so you don't have to get off twice or search around. Can't believe it, they had Chick-fil-A. I'm gonna give you guys a quick walk around of the car after 300 miles. Florida, just entered Georgia. There's actually a decent amount of bugs on the front, a little bit more than I was expecting, but these are the fog lights I was mentioning. See how white the angel eyes are, and then obviously the xenon lights are a little blue. The fog lights are a little bit, you know, kind of yellow. So I could do a little bit wider bulb. I'll have to swap those out with some regular halogens, but super glad that I did that. And you know, there's no kick up or anything. I haven't had any rain or anything like that. So anyways, car's doing good. Car's running at a great temperature. We got to get back on the road. Don't ask me if I'm going to eat in the car, because you probably already have an answer. Okay, so before I forget, I do want to mention the prep items that I did for the M5, including packing and including any kind of car prep fluids, that kind of thing. Some people, I think, go a little bit overboard, and I'm definitely someone who can get a little excited about certain things at certain times, but when it comes to prepping a car for a road trip, and it's my car, whether it was my Jeep, which I've taken on many, many long trips. I actually drove that down to Florida, drove that many, many miles. I had that car for 6 years. Or it's this M5, which is 17 years old. I know the cars very well, and they're usually in very, very good shape. So I don't find the need to do any sort of excessive, I guess, review of the vehicle. The first thing I did before I left, so one of the big things I did before I left was a fresh oil change. Since I am going to be in Ohio, it's going to be 30, 40 degrees, and I knew that I'd need an oil change within a few thousand miles of when I moved, so I figured I would just get that out of the way before I left, get fresh oil, make sure it's at the right level, and all that stuff. And then I also topped off the coolant. And lastly, I actually topped off the windshield washer fluid, which is kind of funny. I'm very attention to detail, but when it comes to washer fluid, I literally never use it. I probably use it like once or twice per year, and that's literally only when I have to. If it's a nasty, salty day and it kind of dries on the windshield, I only use it because it makes a huge mess all over the car, and it puts these blue streaks all over the paint, and it's kind of aggressive and abrasive, and I just don't want to use it. So I never check it, I never use it, and honestly, I don't even care. But I did get a notification on the M5 that my washer fluid was low. So in that process, I learned that the M5 actually has 2 washer fluid reservoirs. There's apparently the regular one, which I filled up, and then there's also an intense wash function, which adds a concentrated liquid into the regular liquid to be used every 21st wash or something really, really bizarre. I actually put just regular washer fluid in both because, quite honestly, it's very unnecessary and I don't care to worry about the concentration. But anyways, you know, the washer fluid and the essential fluids, I made sure that the power steering and all that stuff is good. And to be honest with you, I don't always go through the fluids that in depth, but given the fact that this car's a little older and I didn't want to have to deal with having any questions when I got up north, where it's a little bit colder, I just figured it was an excuse to kind of check it now regardless. And since there's an extreme mist on the windshield, you can't really tell, but what I did do is I prepped the windshield. So what I did was I actually used that product from Matt. Oh, it's a really intensive sort of an alcohol-based cleaner. So I wiped down the windshield and I reapplied the Wolf's glass sealant, which normally works very, very well. Right now, since it's such a light mist, you can't really tell that it's on there, but I also did that. That's really essential. And then lastly, I topped up the tires, made sure they were all the same PSI, and they were all looking good. And I also did a visual inspection of them as well, just kind of making sure that they, I didn't have a nail, you know, just kind of visually. I've actually found one in the past just by looking at them before a trip. So here's something that I actually found really funny is before I went on my trip, I mentioned to my buddies what I did. It really wasn't a big deal. I just mentioned, I was like, oh, I made sure to change the oil because I don't want to do it in 30-degree weather, blah, 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 haha. But a bunch of my friends said, well, normally I put wax on the front of my car before I go on a long trip for the bugs and dirt or whatever. And I'm like, why do you need to do that? They're like, well, so the bugs are easier to remove. And I'm like, well, there's already wax on my car. Why do I need to put more? They're like, well, so that's easier. It's a fresh coat. I'm like, well, I reapplied my topper. I have Polish Angel Master Sealant, which I put on about a year ago, and then the Polish Angel Rapid Wax, which is sort of the second/third layer. And when I washed it the last 2 times in preparation for the trip, I made sure that the drying aid I used was the wax, which lasts probably close to 6 months. It's kind of like Colinite, if you guys are familiar with that. And I guess I had a handful of people say you should wax the front because I know you're detail oriented, but you don't need to wax the front. I have a very, very strong opinion about this because I was actually thinking about, I'm on the road, I'm going a little crazy, but you don't need to wax the front of your car to do anything unless your car doesn't have protection on it. It's not like a layerable system, and you know, I guess with that theory you'd put 20 coats of wax on in hopes that it would have the bugs fly off even more, but it's not really layerable in that way. I mean, there's only so much wax you can put on the front of the car, and if I already have the sealant and the wax and a topper, a few layers of that, it's very diminishing. So that is my opinion. As you guys know, I'm just an at-home detailer, just doing my own thing, my own cars. But that is my personal opinion if you guys were wondering about the whole waxing situation or coating or spray sealant or whatever you want to put on. I don't really like monkeying with those. I have used like CarPro Reload and stuff like that, but it gets a little finicky to work with. I like Beadmaker, but Beadmaker is not durable enough for me, for at least for the M5, because the car sits outside a lot. It's exposed to the elements. So if I go 2 or 3 weeks, I feel like the Beadmaker gets beat up. Yeah, I'm gonna wash it and reapply it, but I'd rather just put some sort of I would either put the Rapid Wax, or I would put something else. So it's kind of interesting. Right now it says I'm scheduled to arrive in Columbus at 8:29. Yes, that is 20:29. That is the equivalent of 8 p.m. military time, which I know is a little weird for most people, but it's kind of cool to have that. And when it's raining, guys, did you know that you should always turn on your lights? And normally I have them on automatic mode, but sometimes the automatic mode turns them off, and I wanted to just be sure. I wanted to be safe more than sorry to make sure that the lights are turned on. You guys remember earlier when I was like, oh, I didn't drive through any rain and blah, blah, blah. Well, here we go, Georgia. Thank you so much for this. The good thing is it's a free car wash. Oh, I just entered South Carolina. Holy shit. I didn't even know. And for those of you guys who think I'm totally cannonballing it, I mean, we're going a pretty reasonable speed right now once the camera adjusts. I'm trying to show off the Wolf's Sealant. Oh, there's the little South Carolina deal. There we go. Yeah, see? I don't have to use windshield wipers. Look, Mom, no hands.